This is Marshuska, little girl. And this is the narrator. In 1870, in the last days that a place called Czechoslovakia was ruled by the Austrian government, the poor village tailor and his wife lived with their only son. Their son's name was Norbert because he was born on St. Norbert's Day, a religious day for Catholics. But the couple had very little money, not wanting Norbert to grow up poor and without proper food or any schooling. They sent him to live with his Uncle Victor in Vienna. Now, Uncle Victor was a tailor, like Norbert's parents. And he was also Catholic, as were almost everyone in Bohemia. The agreement was that Norbert would work his way through school by helping his uncle in his tailor shop. But Norbert soon began to realize that being a tailor wasn't for him, and he didn't like the Catholic church his uncle insisted that he go to. He instead joined the Baptist church, where he could sing, talk about his ideas of God, and where the service was spoken in his own language. But when he told Uncle Victor that he wanted to go to the Baptist church, his uncle became very, very angry. Norbert was immediately dismissed and asked to leave. In a place nearby, in a town much like where Norbert lived, with his uncle, a little girl named Marshuka lived with her father. They were even poorer than Norbert's parents. Marshuka and her father made and sold matches. All day, Marshuka's father would carve little slivers of wood from leftover kindling and then dip the slivers in thick red sulfur paste. When they dried, they could be scratched against charcoal and used to light candles or fires. Marshuka dreamed about going to school, being with other children, and learning about things that could be different. Before she died, Marshuka's mother read to her from books and told her stories after school. And after that, it was just Marshuka and her father, and school was out of the question. All day, he made the matches that Marshuka would sell to passerbyers on the town square. Even on their good days, they made barely enough to feed themselves. And on their bad days, when no one brought matches, Marshuka's father would become so angry, he would beat her and send her back out and tell her not to come back until she sold all of her matches. With his uncle turning away from him, Norbert felt like he was being abandoned for believing differently. It was a hard time, but the Baptists saw that he had courage, kindness, and a yearning for justice. They sent him through seminary, where he became the Reverend Norbert Schepek. He earned money by selling Bibles, starting his own magazine about science and psychology, and preaching. During this time, Catholicism was still the state religion. Being a Baptist, while not illegal, was regarded by the government as suspicious. The police raided Norbert's gatherings more than once. It would have been tough enough to endure by himself, but by the time Norbert was married and had many children of his own, the threats and violence against his family were more than he could tolerate. The Schepeks went abroad and wound up in the United States. His wife died, leaving him with 8 children. Norbert visited the New York libraries often so he could read newspapers from his own country, and he continued to publish writings about the Czech movement. It was at the library where he met Maya, whom he later married. It was also there that he met a man to speak to named Mazaret, the leader of the Czech movement abroad. Through Marshek, he found Unitarianism. Norbert was overjoyed to find the faith he felt he'd been moving towards all of his life. He enrolled in Meadville, Lombard, the Unitarian seminary, and graduated as a Unitarian minister just as the First World War ended. The end of the war brought about large numbers of Czechs abandoning the Catholic Church. Norbert's friend Marshek went back to lead the Czech people, and he became their first president. Soon after, Norbert went back to create a church which helped give people hope instead of hardship. It was difficult work and often dangerous because the Catholic Church was still very powerful. But Norbert felt he had to go despite the troubles. When Marshuka left the house, snow was falling and the wind pressed against her little face. It was bitterly cold in the dark, and she had no cap for her head or shoes for her feet. She had slippers on when she left home, but they were not much good, for they were so huge. They had last been worn by her mother, and they fell off Marshuka's feet when she was running across the street to avoid two carriages that were rolling rapidly by. One of the shoes could not be found at all. The other was picked up by a boy who ran off with it, saying that it would do for a cradle when he had children of his own. So Marshuka had to walk in her bare feet, which were red and blue with cold. She carried a quantity of matches in her old apron and held a packet of them in her hand. Nobody had bought any from her that day, and nobody had given her even a penny. Hungry and perishing with cold, she looked the picture of misery. The snowflakes fell on her golden hair, but she paid no attention to that. Lights were shining from every window, and there were the most delicious odor of food coming into the streets from all the shops that were just closing up. She found a corner between two houses where the wind didn't seem to blow so hard. There she crouched, drawing up her feet under her, but she was colder than ever. She did not dare go home, for she had not sold any matches, had no money, and found no food. Her father would beat her. And besides, it was almost as cold at home as it was there in the street. They had only the roof over them, and the wind whistled through it, although they stuffed up the biggest cracks with rags and straw. Marshuka began to worry about what would happen. She found it hard to see the hope she yearned for she would find herself in the warm embrace of people who welcomed her. Her hope was having a hard time keeping up with her troubles. Have you ever had so much trouble you didn't know what to do? Have you ever felt so lost you began to lose hope? We all get there sometimes. Every so often we are asked to do things that are uncomfortable, sometimes impossible. And we feel alone and frightened. We are afraid of the trouble in our lives and the pain it causes. That's true, but often we are more afraid that no one cares if we are all alone. We are afraid that nobody will ever know the things we care about, what worries we carry, or the troubles we've seen. These words were written by Maya Shepek, Norbert's wife. Listen as she describes returning to Czechoslovakia after the war. We did not know anyone there, nor did the Czech people know anything about Unitarianism. We rented a concert hall for our meeting, and it was jammed. Finally, we built our own place, which we called Unitaria. The services were starkly simple. People came from many religious backgrounds, and none wanted to be reminded of their old churches. No gown was to be worn by the minister. No singing of hymns, nor any prayers. Instead, a passing of a collection plate, people paid as they entered. To avoid the appearance of an organized religion, they called the movement the Liberal Fellowship. The stated goal was to provide spiritual and ethical education and create a loving community based on individual freedom and universal brotherhood. The Shepek's church flourished in the years before the world wars. It quickly became the largest Unitarian church in the world. But with the occupation of the country by the Nazis, the church was threatened with extinction. Norbert knew that the people were frightened. Many among his congregation were threatened or beaten or put in prison. Some had their houses or businesses robbed, shut down, or burned by the Nazi soldiers. Others worried that they would be next. There seemed little to be hoped for. One of the traditional annual services that offered people hope to the people of the church was the Flower Festival service. For this service, everyone brought a flower with them to church. At a point during the service, a communal vase was brought to the front, and each person would place their flower inside. At the end of the service, each person went to the vase, retrieved the flower different from the one they brought, and took it home with them. The flower communion symbolized that despite how hard life became, each person has something beautiful to contribute, and that it was offered of their own free will to the common good. Also, that despite the troubles around them, each person could find something beautiful to take with them from the common good. Marshuka's hands were almost stiff with cold. She held on to all the matches as if her life depended on it. Oh, one little match would do some good, if only she dared. She would pull out one of her bundle and strike it on the wall to warm her fingers. She pulled out one. Whoosh! How it sputtered and blazed. It burnt with a bright, clear flame, just like a candle, when she held her hand around it. Now the light seemed very strange to her. Marshuka imagined that she was sitting in front of a big stove with polished brass feet and handles. There was a splendid fire blazing in it, warming her so beautifully, but what happened? Just as she was stretching out her feet to warm them, the flame went out. The stove vanished, and she was left sitting with the end of the burnt match in her hand. She struck a new one. It burnt, it blazed up, and when the light fell upon the wall, it became transparent like gauze. And she could see right through it into the room. The table was spread with snowy cloth and pretty china. A roasted goose sat on the big dish in front of her, and just as she was about to stick her fork into it, the match went out. And there was nothing to be seen but the thick black wall in front of her. She lit another match. This time she was sitting under a hearth with other boys and girls. She was surrounded by Christmas candles. Everyone was happy and had gifts in their hands. There was one for her, and to her surprise, she was also had one to give, tucked under her tattered shawl. Marshuka stretched out both her hands, offering the other children her gift. Went out with the match. All the Christmas candles rose higher and higher, till she saw that they were only the twinkling stars. One of them fell and made a bright streak across the sky. Someone is dying, thought Marshuka, since this is what her mother told her about falling stars. Now she struck another match against the wall, and this time it was her mother who appeared in a circle of flame. Marshuka saw her quite clearly, distinctly, looking so gentle and happy. "Mother," she cried, "I'm so happy you're here. I know you will vanish when the match goes out, like the warm stove, the delicious goose, and the children around the beautiful Christmas lights. But tell me about the stars again. Tell me before you go." Her mother explained that each boy and girl had a star up in the sky, and the star burned brightly with hope, not only for them, but for all the children, all the stars, everywhere. As Marshuka listened, she felt so much hope. She hastily struck a whole bunch of matches because she wanted to keep her mother with her. The light of the matches made it as bright as day. Her mother had never before looked so bright, big, and so beautiful. She lifted Marshuka up in her arms where there was no need to be cold anymore, no hunger and no pain, for they were with one another. Have you ever been able to imagine something so beautiful that it gave you hope? That it helped you during some really tough times? We all have. From one time to another, when things are not at their best or worst, we discover that one star is not enough for us. Nor is one flame of a match or one flower in a vase. Sometimes our grief or worry needs more than ourselves to find comfort and meaning. Sometimes our joy overflows, too much to hold in and keep to ourselves. Today, we want to recognize this as we share our flower communion service. We invite you now to bring up a flower to the front, place it in the communal vase, and return to your seat. It shows that we each have something beautiful to offer. No matter how difficult our lives can be, we each have something beautiful. Please bring your flowers up and put them in the vases and return to your seat. Better him than me. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and brotherly love. May they remind us that amid diversities of knowledge and our gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of camaraderie, or doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of the most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationships. But may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in the world. Never one to shriek from a crisis, Norbert continued to preach against the Nazi occupation. He was regularly questioned by the Gestapo, who demanded that he not speak against the Reich. Although Norbert didn't speak out against them on Sunday mornings, he continued in his work against the occupiers by forming a resistance committee, which met in the church and helped the Czechs escape from the Gestapo. Finally, in the spring of 1941, Norbert declared, "I can bear it no longer. I must speak the truth and not be a coward." He issued his forthright challenge to the Nazis by using his Sunday morning sermon to contradict a speech of Hitler's. 5 days later, the Gestapo came to his house, charged him with listening to a foreign broadcast, and sent him to prison. At the same time, a high-ranking Nazi official was assassinated, which ignited a fury of violence. Many Czechs were killed. Norbert was sent to Dachau in retaliation. On his papers were the fatal instructions, "Return unwanted." In prison, Norbert kept his fellow inmates' spirits up with humor, caring, and cheerfulness. But as he was now over 70 years old, he was quickly transported with other older prisoners to that part of the camp where torturous experiments were being conducted. Norbert Chapat, after 4 years in the camp, died in October 1942. Marshuka kept lighting the matches that she had brought with her to sell. She refused to let go of the sight of her mother before her. As she heard and reheard the stories her mother told, in just the same voice she knew, in the same way she had always remembered, she felt warmer, comforted, full of hope. Match after match she burned. She smiled broadly as each one flared up. In those small flames, she could feel her own soul rise up and glow as well. In the cold morning light, Marshuka sat there, in the corner between the houses, with rosy cheeks and a smile on her face. She had died during the night, frozen on the coldest night of the year. The new morning broke on her little body, still sitting with the ends of the burnt-out matches in her hand. Every one of them had been used. The people who found her, gathered around, were very mystified. Her face still radiated with hope and peace. She must have tried to warm herself, they said. They were sad. But nobody knew what beautiful visions she had seen, nor understood the depth of her comfort. Nor did they fully grasp that even in the darkest times, not even death could take away this young girl's hope, or the meaning she found in the things she loved most dearly. The hardest times and the most dire moments are not strong enough to rob us of our capacity to share love. Not even death can take from us the love that is exchanged between people. It is with us as long as we have love to offer. It is with us whenever we are open to receiving love from others. By offering what we can, by making room to receive the offerings of others, we carry with us the hope of our future. Our hope in this community comes from the gifts we give each other freely. The gifts of time, talent, encouragement, hope, and the gift of money. I now invite you to come forward to this communion basis and take with you a flower different from the one you brought. May you know that the gifts that you bring to this place are unique and valuable. May you know that it returns to you in unexpected and exciting ways. And may you know that no challenge is so great as to make beauty or love impossible. May it be so. Please come get some flowers.
Just push out the way too.
Yeah, just push.
Yeah. Just put it right in. You can take that one. Careful about putting it in the phone. It's from there. Spinning you. Spinning you. There we go.
Ricky, you get left behind.
There's lots. Please stand and join me in singing De Flores, number 305.